History often teaches us that wars are born from ambition, greed, or ideology. But dig deeper, and you'll find something more unsettling. Sometimes it all begins with a simple error. A misread signal, a wrong turn, a missed opportunity to speak, or to stay silent. Great wars, millions of lives lost, entire nations reshaped, triggered by something as small as a misunderstanding, a delay, a glance in the wrong direction. Let's begin in Sarajevo, 1914. The Austro-Hungarian Archduke Franz Ferdinand is visiting Bosnia. It's meant to be a show of unity, a demonstration that the empire still holds power over its diverse ethnic regions. But the atmosphere is tense. Serbian nationalists see the Archduke as a symbol of oppression. One group, the Black Hand, plans an assassination. The first attempt fails. A bomb thrown at the motorcade bounces off the roof of the Archduke's car. Shaken, the procession reroutes. The Archduke insists on visiting the injured in hospital. Now here comes the tiny mistake. No one informs the drivers of the route change, so they turn into the original street, Franz Joseph Street, and realize too late it's the wrong path. The car slows, reversing awkwardly in the narrow road. The 19-year-old assassin, named Gavrilo Princip, is standing at a nearby cafe. He sees the Archduke, exposed, confused, vulnerable, pulls out his pistol and fires. 2 shots. One kills the Archduke, the other his wife. The world stops breathing. Austria blames Serbia. Russia sides with Serbia. Germany sides with Austria. France and Britain are drawn in. One wrong turn, and within weeks, the world is at war. For years, over 20 million dead. All because no one updated the driver. But that's just one. Let's go back further, to the American Revolutionary War. April 1775. Lexington, Massachusetts. British troops march to seize colonial weapons and arrest rebel leaders. On the town green, they face a group of colonial militia. The tension is unbearable, as both sides are ordered not to fire unless fired upon. And then, it happens. A single gunshot. To this day, no one knows who fired it, British, American, or a nervous bystander. But that one crack of the musket changes everything. Chaos erupts. The British open fire, the rebels retaliate. The Battle of Lexington begins, soon followed by Concord. That single shot, perhaps accidental, starts a revolution that ends in the birth of the United States and the collapse of Britain's dominance over its American colonies. Wars are not always planned. Sometimes they stumble into existence. Consider the Crimean War in 1854. Tensions between Russia and the Ottoman Empire were already high. But diplomacy was still possible. The spark. A religious dispute over who would control Christian holy sites in Jerusalem. Sounds absurd now. A geopolitical war triggered by who gets to hold the keys to a church. But France, supporting Catholic claims, and Russia, defending Orthodox rights, clashed in a diplomatic tangle that spiraled out of control. Britain, fearing Russian expansion, joined in. One diplomatic insult after another, mixed with national pride and paranoia, led to full-blown war. All of it could have been avoided. If the holy site dispute had been handled with more tact, if egos had stepped aside, but they didn't, and more than 500,000 people paid the price. Then there's the War of Jenkins' Ear. Yes, you heard that right. In 1738, a British merchant named Robert Jenkins appears before Parliament, holding something in a jar his own ear, severed years earlier by Spanish coast guards off the coast of the Americas. His story ignites outrage. Newspapers explode with headlines. Spanish cruelty, British honor, insulted. Parliament, already hungry for confrontation with Spain over trade rights, uses this as emotional fuel. War is declared, ships are built, battles are fought across the Atlantic. Thousands die, all over an ear, or at least the story of one. Some historians even doubt if it really was Jenkins' ear. But no one questioned it at the time. A severed piece of flesh became a political weapon, and war followed. Now step into the 20th century. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 is known as the moment the world came closest to nuclear war, but very few remember the small decisions or missteps that nearly turned it hot. At the height of the crisis, a U.S. Navy ship drops, signaling depth charges to force a Soviet submarine to surface. The crew aboard that submarine, cut off from communication, thinks war may have already begun. They prepare to launch a nuclear torpedo, The only reason they don't is because one officer, Vasily Arkhipov, refuses to authorize it. A single man, unknown to history at the time, silently saves the world from annihilation. Had he agreed, even by mistake or under pressure, cities across the globe would have burned. The war that never happened almost began with a signal misunderstood underwater. Tiny mistakes, moments when no one thinks they matter, are often the ones that change everything. The Korean War in 1950 began when North Korea invaded the South. But why did they think it would succeed? Why did they believe America wouldn't intervene? One reason: a diplomatic blunder. A U.S. official, Dean Acheson, delivered a speech outlining America's defensive perimeter in Asia. It included Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan, but not South Korea. This omission, likely unintentional, was interpreted by North Korea and by Stalin as a green light. A mistake in wording, an assumption not corrected, and the war began. Millions died. The Korean peninsula remains divided to this day. Even ancient wars echo this theme. In 431 BC, the Peloponnesian War erupted between Athens and Sparta. Among many political and territorial reasons, the immediate spark was the siege of a small town called Patadia, a minor Athenian colony. Sparta demanded Athens back off. Athens refused. The town itself wasn't the real reason, but its position, its pride, and the political messages attached to it pushed the already fragile peace over the edge. The war lasted 27 years and ended with Athens' downfall. The city that had built the world's first democracy collapsed, partly due to a power play over a town most people could unfind on a map. It seems absurd at first. That a wrong turn could cause a world war. That a speech omission could lead to a divided nation. That an ear in a jar could spark a transatlantic conflict. But that's the uncomfortable truth of human history. We imagine great wars being calculated, planned for years, born of ideology or massive events. And yes, sometimes they are. But more often than we'd like to admit, they begin in the quiet margins of power. In small rooms, in miscommunications, in egos and silences, in gestures no one noticed at the time. It reminds us that history is fragile, that diplomacy is dangerous, that human error, not evil genius, is often what steers the ship. So the next time you hear about a war, remember this. It might not have started with a villain's speech, or a secret army, or a master plan. It might have started with a letter that never arrived, a driver who wasn't told, a name that was left off a list. And that ... makes it even more terrifying. Because if tiny mistakes started the biggest wars in history, then who's to say they won't and do it again?